Good evening, everyone. Let's see. I think there's already some questions coming in. Hello, Giovanni Braga. Hello, Saj Mahan. Hello, Mega Penis. I'm not sure if that is the right way to pronounce that. And Gabriel Vespoli says, how to your elements to your music don't sound everything at the same space. I'm guessing what you're trying to ask is how to separate different elements in the track, and the best way to go about doing so is with something like an EQ. So I'm sure if you just search through my channel, you'll find plenty of videos on EQ and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks to everyone who's joining me. It's been a while since. Are you going to upload the stream afterwards? Yeah, well, it's a live stream, so hopefully, if I don't mess up too badly, it's gonna be on the channel forever. I'm not sure if my volume in my audio in my voice is loud enough, so just let me know, guys. So yeah, I haven't done a stream in a while, and I just noticed that I'm on almost 20k subscribers, and that's incredible. Can't believe it. Thank you, everybody, for the support. And I figured I've got to do something to say thank you, but I haven't really planned anything. So this is a little bit of a chilled stream. I'm just going to be kind of making sounds with Hive 2. I've kind of introed a little bit of this plugin on my channel, and the more I kind of dive into it, the more it's becoming a sort of bread and butter synth in my workflow. So I kind of want to explore it a little bit with you guys, but more just like a chill making sound stream as opposed to just the technical stuff. So yeah, if you guys have any questions regarding anything, just shoot, and I will try to follow the chat while I make some sounds. Mic is muted. Thank you. So there's a question here. Can we make a melody for Psytrance? We don't have knowledge of pianos. Yes, you absolutely can. And I'm actually glad you've asked now that I've got Hive open. Oh, damn, the stream delay. Don't worry, it's not muted anymore. Now that I've got Hive open, because this little button over here, this Q, allows you to quantize the modulation. So what that essentially means is it doesn't allow any signal through that's not snapped to the particular scale which you set. So I'm going to show you. It should be on now. 1, 2. Maybe I should just wait a little bit. So I'm going to get to the melody question after I've answered the question from Joseph Howell. How have I made the atmosphere at the start? So if you max out the size and the decay and the mix of the reverb effect, in Hive 2, it's like an instant pad atmosphere generator. It like almost doesn't matter what's actually happening inside the patch. So that's really cool for creating atmospheres out of like a sound that you might already be using in a track. So I just figured that'd be a cool way to kind of start the stream off. But I think I've also got some modulation, like changing the tone and the dampening of this reverb. Sounds very, very nice. I like it. I'm missing some questions here. Okay, so what's up to anybody who's joined us? What's up for I-20? How are you doing? What's up, DJ Nameless? Yes, hopefully the mic is back on. So the melody question, let me just init this patch quickly. And I want to show you something here real quick. So LFO onto the pitch. And we all know what that does. But now if we quantize this to, for example, like minor chord, it's going to only allow 3 of the notes within the minor scale of that modulation through to the pitch. So the result is something like this. So that's pretty cool. And obviously you're not limited to a triangle LFO shape. You can use a random. So this is really cool for like random melodies. So if you combine this, for example, with like the shape generator on, let's do like the volume, we can create like a sort of gated pattern. Let's just draw in all of these notes here, or all of these shapes. And then we can jump into them and like alter the shape of each one. And if you roll the mouse wheel, you can actually triple or quadruple them up. And you can set some of them to like 0, so some notes don't actually play, which is a pretty cool kind of technique with a random, because you have this kind of set rhythm, but the notes are kind of getting randomized. So that, I don't think there was any audio coming through there, so I'm just going to do another quick one. Another really cool thing about this shape sequencer is you can set this to random. And then it kind of like jumps. It's not the same rhythm every time. So you kind of got random melodies and random rhythms. Pretty cool thing. It's always going to kind of snap into the key. Cool. So I hope that answers the melody question. You don't really have to know much about melody, just a couple of little tricks. You can make some pretty compelling stuff. Sequences and ARPs are probably also going to be your best friend if you don't know too much. Nice way of creating compelling melodies without knowing too much. Okay, let me see these questions here. What's your take on iZotope Ozone 8 Standard? It's good. I believe iZotope 9 is out. I'm not sure what the major differences are. I kind of skipped the boat for a little while. I think the old version, the latest version I had before upgrading to 9 was like 6 or something, and I was happy with that one, and then just upgraded to 9 recently, and I'm very happy with 9. So, I mean, it's a great plugin. I would say go for it if you are choosing, but I'm not sure whether the option is between 8 and 9. I can't really compare those two, but it is very, very cool. Wait, it's on Genesis Pro 1 VST. Not sure what the question is. Yo, Glitch, I'll take the opportunity. Thanks for all the tutorials. It's a pleasure, man. I love doing this. I enjoy helping you guys, and the support you give me back is incredible. So, yeah, I couldn't thank you guys more. I can't tell you exactly when Genesis Pro is coming out. I'm not too sure about that one. Do you ever reference your tracks? Yes, absolutely. It's a very important part of mixing, and actually sound design as well, but not too much. I try to stick with the creative side of things when I'm actually like sound designing, but when referencing, when I'm mixing, definitely referencing. I've actually done a couple of videos using this little plugin here, Curve EQ. As you'll see, it's got these things in, and what I'll often do when I'm starting a mix is chuck a track in there, grab those spectrums and then reference to that, just in case like my ears get fatigued over time. I can always like have a look at that and just kind of see where my levels are. It's a very helpful plugin, that one. Curve EQ, it actually comes with Cubase. Oh, my mouse keeps jumping. I'm not seeing these questions. Look up Genesis Pro, new synth from one insane guy. You will make insane sounds on this. I have looked at it briefly. I'm very happy with Phase Plant and Hive 2 at the moment. And of course, Serum. I don't think anything will ever beat these three. How did I learn to do all of this? Did I take some course? I did study sound engineering in 2007 at Cape Audio College. It's a local sound engineering college, they don't really teach too much about sound design and electronic music production and stuff. It was more about recording and the kind of like the fundamentals of like the science behind sound, you know, what waves are and all sorts of stuff like that, different microphone techniques and that kind of stuff. And it might not be applicable to most producers, but I feel it gave me a very strong basis of, you know, everything sound. And at the time, I kind of didn't really see how much it applied. I was kind of like, oh, you know, this is boring. I don't want to learn how to record a band or whatever. But only afterwards I started to see like, oh, it's all the same thing, you know. And a lot of the sciences and stuff that they taught started to make sense as I applied them afterwards. So if you guys are thinking of doing some sort of college and that kind of thing, it's definitely a help. But I think the application of the knowledge is as important as learning it. Meneer Glitch wil net dankie sê vir die Origin set. Thank you, man. Hey, man, any advice on a new Sybase artist as myself to break into the scene? I think just keep working hard, you know. Just keep putting tracks out, and I'm sure you'll get your 15 minutes of fame. I am busy reading the comments, bro. Oh damn, too many comments are coming through. Thanks everybody who's saying thank you. You guys support me, it's beautiful. I wouldn't be doing this without you guys. Recently had a discussion. When you build a melody with lots of unstable tones, it's hard to follow along with other tones. Do you know anything about that? Myself, I'm not too familiar with music theory, but I do know that the different notes in the scale create like different feelings, and that's why something like a minor creates more tension than a major scale. But that's about as far as I can go answering that question. Is there anything that Hive can do that Serum can't? ARPs and sequencers. This pretty cool shape sequencer, quantizing oscillator, or quantizing of any modulations. Yeah, quite a lot of stuff. I don't want to really get into it because I feel like it's unfair to compare Serum to Hive because they're probably the best two complements together. But I've made a video that I'm busy editing that I'll upload soon that kind of should hopefully answer that question. If I buy sample packs of kick and bass, does it require EQ and compression? Are they already EQ'd? I guess that depends on the track. You know, something like EQ and compression, I feel is very much dependent on everything else in the track. So, you know, the sound could work on its own, but I guess it depends on the entire arrangement and stuff. Could you suggest some courses other than YouTube that would be really helpful? Thanks in advance. It's tough. I would say like in person is probably the best. Like check out if there's any local sound engineering colleges that maybe do music production and that kind of stuff. How do you make your tracks more groovy besides drums and percussion? What have I done? Okay, so I would say the best way to make your tracks more groovy without drums and percussion is to have a look at how the different instruments are working together. So, thank you, Citizen Warwick. Congrats for sharing the awesome amount of knowledge. Thank you. Thank you for the support. It really means the world to me. Oh, damn, I've lost my train of thought now. Oh, yes. Okay, so to make your tracks more groovy, I would say the best way to do so is to have a look at how the elements in the track work together as opposed to each singular sound. So, I mean, the best example of groove is something like two sounds that like work very well together off time or something like that. And one way of doing that is to kind of create a melody in one synth and then mute the notes of that synth and then just copy it onto another synth, and then swap the notes over. So I actually want to see if I can make a quick example here. But let me just see if I can get through some of these questions. Do you play any real instruments aside from producing? I played drums when I was much younger. I did learn piano when I was very, very young. I played drums in a band for a few years, but then I kind of lost touch with that side of things and got into music production. I think I kind of always wanted to create the kind of music in its entirety as opposed to singular instruments. But I think like while I was growing up, there wasn't really access to the type of things that we have now. I mean, the computers, like software back then, was incredibly basic. It only offered like single drum sounds or like 303 emulation type stuff, but not entire kind of song or track based stuff. I think they were designed kind of to be used complementing hardware gear, which was obviously inaccessible to me at the time. So I kind of lost interest in the electronic side and moved with the drums and that kind of thing. But then when I realized like the power that what you could do with a computer nowadays, it was a no-brainer, and I just quickly forgot about all other stuff. I do apologize if I'm missing any questions. Will you do more dark, abstract, complex tutorials in the near future? Yes, hopefully I will. It does help, like people sending or posting comments with like a track suggestion with a timestamp, because a lot of the time I get quite a few comments, and YouTube has this really helpful thing where it can only show the comments that have questions in them or links in them and stuff. So it helps me kind of filter those out, and then I can just go through all of them, pick a sound which I think I can remake, and then you do that as a tutorial. Okay, let me see if I can answer this question about the groove. So, I mean, I might not be able to do it just like off the top of my head, but so I actually just want to pick a sound that I created already, and then I'll just create a MIDI pattern for that. So let me just go through some of these. Are you planning a phase plant preset pack? Yes, hopefully. I was kind of waiting for something, but I don't want to give away too much. But I will definitely be doing a Hive 2 preset pack and a phase plant preset pack in the near future. So I'm just going to try create like a groove over this kick bass percussion that I've already created here. So it might not work, it might work, who knows. But then I want to quickly outline something for the question that was asked. No, I don't think that sound works. Okay, wait. I think I've got one here, this formant. Then I'll just turn this off. Yes, that's nice. So to make things easier, because I only know a single scale, I'm going to put a MIDI modifiers on here and transpose the track downwards. so that I can write the melody in C minor and it'll play in a different key. So then my favorite thing to do is, like, once we've got like a melody and I want to create like a compelling groove, would be to, for example, copy that over. Wait, let's actually just randomly mute a bunch of these. Let's just go with like these two. There's no like thought or pattern here. I'm just kind of muting them at random. And then I'm going to duplicate this. I think this is another Serum channel I've got. Yeah, let me just choose one of my leads here. That's all sequences. I might need to put a modifier on here as well. So now the trick is to swap what's muted and what's not muted. So they're kind of like A being the one is playing when the other is not playing. Okay, I'm being silly. So what I did was I alt shifted as opposed to just alt dragging. So that made a duplicate. So when I muted them, it muted the other ones as well. So they weren't alternating. Damn, that's actually pretty cool. Save. So yeah, it's a pretty easy way of making like instant grooves. I would say that kind of, I wouldn't say always work, but like 9 times out of 10, I found that they work. Also, just to kind of randomly mute stuff in a melody, I find to take stuff out often works better than adding more stuff in. Okay, let's get back to the questions. Let's see here. What have I missed? What is your mindset when setting stereo enhancers? Sometimes I feel that I need some synths wider, but when I do this, they end sounding natural, unnatural, or hollow. So I guess it helps. Are you listening on headphones? Are you mainly listening on speakers? Because there's a massive difference between the stereo, the sound of stereo on both of those two different things. I've noticed generally on headphones, anything with stereo widening sounds way too wide, and speakers generally it's like a little bit too little. So I guess the trick is to listen on all the headphones and speakers that you've got. Specifically, I mean, it might be difficult to reference like when you're mixing a track or when you're just sound designing. So it helps to have a pair of headphones on hand, even if it's just like a crappy pair of headphones, just to listen to what the stereo sounds like. Compared to the stereo of your headphones. And also check on a phase meter that you're not going into the anti-phase territory, because that can help as well. Arrangements are structured 8, 16, 32 bar chunks. I noticed that some producers add single bar transitions, 8 to 1, other subtract transitions, breakdowns. Any tips on arrangements and transitions? I guess the best tip would be to reference, what your favorite artists are doing, and, play around with what works in your track. Sometimes after very busy segments, it helps to kind of break down with a bar of something a bit more chilled before kind of carrying on and that kind of thing. Thanks for answering the previous question. I wanted to ask 2 more questions. How long did it take you to learn everything production, and how do you make your living? So I guess I studied sound engineering in 2007, but at that time I was already kind of making beats and stuff, but not really serious. But I would say I kind of only buckled down and started getting serious about production in the kind of last 6 or 7 years or so. And I would say like the best way that I make my money is through selling sound banks and selling sounds and that kind of stuff. I do also get a lot of support from my Patreons and that kind of stuff. And I also write a lot of articles and like tech articles and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Do you make expand preset packs for Electra X? Nope, I don't have Electra. I don't have Anna 2 Slate. I have looked at it. It does look very, very nice, but I actually just don't have it at the moment. Making an ARP or sequence. I'm not sure if you were here earlier on, but check out go back and watch the LFO quantized trick. It's really cool. If you don't have Hive 2, then Pigments can do a very similar thing as well. There's a Euclidean Rhythm Max for Live device. Unfortunately, I don't have Ableton. I think I have heard of that device, though. Oh my gosh, I'm getting to the end of the questions. Yes. To master the sound designing. I don't feel like I'm one of those people that kind of like always learns stuff. I thrive on learning new things. So I don't think I'll ever consider myself a master, because there's always new things to learn. And I think the beauty of the software kind of synth thing at the moment is that these developers are pushing things so ridiculously past previous expectations. Microphone is a bit quiet. So these like software developers and stuff nowadays are pushing the boundaries of like what was expected so far that, as these, as the software gets more and more advanced, then there's more and more for me to master and for me to learn and teach you guys. Do I have any other hobbies? Not really, hey. I just like making music, making sounds, spending time at home with my dogs. Yeah, that's about it. I do like to cook. I'm not sure if like that's a normal thing, but I do cook quite a lot. I'm very into food and that kind of stuff. I wouldn't say I would have ever in any lifetime been a chef, but I can cook a mean dinner. Have you heard of the band Spangle? Damn, dude, of course. I've been probably listening to Spangle since, let me guess, like probably the first time I heard them was like 2002, 2003, kind of around then. Close to 20 years. Big time fan. They were one of the very first. So like when I first heard electronic music, I was kind of like, not my thing, because I was more into bands and that kind of thing at the time. And then I heard Spangle and it was like, wow, it kind of like blew me beyond like any music I'd ever heard before. And it kind of, I think, opened my ears to that extra level of, that kind of ear candy and that kind of thing. And I started listening a bit deeper into psychedelic music because I've obviously found out that Simon Posford was also making psytrance and that kind of thing. And I kind of developed a love for psytrance thanks to Spangle, in fact. So big respect to those guys. More about the bass line, how it's built up, the rhythm. You always have those great bass lines. Favorite dish? Ooh. I would say like the key about the bass line to get it to sound really good is, again, have it working alongside something else in the track. I think I've actually got a really good example here in this track where I made this ARP. Let me just see if I can find it here. So the bass line itself is actually pretty simple, but I think it's like the notes that like this D16 for Zion is hitting that kind of like accentuates the different notes in the bass line a little bit more. And it's similar to kind of the thing that I was explaining in that Asterix tutorial where he does his squelches often on that kind of like accented or higher bass note. Often what I'll do is when I'm using this kind of thing, I'll like take note of what notes I'm using and use those same notes, like the ones that I'm using up here, use those same notes in the melody of the synth. So kind of like your brain expects that frequency when it comes in, if that kind of makes sense. Any tricks to hear what's happening in the low end? So before I got SonarWorks Reference 4, which like very much cleaned up the issues in the low end in my studio, as you can see there. I had quite some issues. What I used to do, because, some reference tracks, I used to get that as well, where I couldn't really hear what was happening in the subs and stuff. So what I would do is I would put a low pass filter on the channel when I'm referencing it and really like boost it up, and then go stand in like another room and listen to like the transient of that low sub and kind of turn that into a kind of reference of what's happening, if that kind of makes sense. So you're just like boosting the low end and listening to only that. And it kind of gives you an idea of like what the sub in a car would sound like, I guess. Give some tips who to finish stuff. How to finish stuff. So you just keep working on the same thing. Don't start something new until you've finished something old. And one way of being able to, not dull any new ideas that come up is to just keep like a notepad or something. I actually got a whiteboard that I put here that I keep all the time now, because just notes were getting out of hand. And just focus on one track and get that done. And if you have ideas or something for a new track, just write it on the whiteboard and don't let anything else like kind of steer you away from that one track. Subpack is also a very good idea. I know quite a few guys who swear by it. I wouldn't like produce or mix with it, but it's a great reference as far as I know. Are you familiar with Land Switcher? I'm unfamiliar with them. Unfortunately, I cannot answer your question, sir. Okay, apologies. It looks like my mic was actually pretty soft there. Fungus Funk and Jump Street. Very cool. I personally prefer a little bit like more melodies and that kind of stuff. But sound design and production-wise, their stuff is very good. Where do you think music production scene is going in the future? And would you suggest for somebody like me who is already 21 and exhausted all my options for going into the production scene? It's a difficult question, and it's going to be a difficult answer. So some of you guys might not agree with me here, but there's so many producers nowadays that I feel, as a producer, you really either have to stand out and, put in 24 hours a day of work to, achieve that number one spot, or to, make a living from it, find the other ways of doing it, revenue streams outside of the actual music as a product, whether it's, graphic design for events or selling sound banks or anything like that. I mean, I believe anybody who puts in the effort can reap the benefits of whatever they're passionate about. So, I mean, maybe it might not be, releasing tracks and getting money from Beatport, but I'm sure if you work hard enough, you'll find that one thing and you'll make it work. What is the best LUF's level true peak for digital platforms, clubs, etc.? Oh, I'm not going to answer you off the top of my head. I'll have to check. Yeah, I've been holding off on the latest Keybase update. I wasn't too sure if most of the new features were all that worthy of the price. Oh, thank you, Mario Hubinger, for the donation. What is currently your favorite Psytrance artist? Oh, I get asked this so many times, but it's so hard to answer because there's so many good ones. I'm going to have to say Asterix, just because he's always been like one of my favorites. Obviously there's so many out there. But I feel like he's really making a good name for the Psytrance scene on a commercial level, but still retaining a very good sound, very tasteful sound. So I would say Asterix is my personal number one spot. How often do you trip? I'm very clumsy, dude. I'm very clumsy. Just actually outside my door here, there's a like hole in the wooden floor which I always fall and drop my tea. Sir, can you please tell how the starting of this track is made? Coming soon, DMT. Can you post a link to the track in the comments of this video with a question mark, and hopefully I will get to that. Where do you perform next? I can't say, man. They'll be announcing soon though, so check out my glitch page on Facebook. I'll announce my next gigs. How to do conversation leads like modular world or do Euclidean rhythms. Diogo, check out a little bit back. I'm not sure if you were watching the stream just now, but I did this cool like A-B synth thing that could answer your question, hopefully. Can you show what's the most important stuff in the sub in your DAW? I feel it makes the cut between danceable and a track just nice to hear. Don't understand what you mean. Do you mean like what I personally think a sub is supposed to look like in this particular track? It might, honestly, I'm still kind of like at the sound design stages here, so it might not look like it. But like I said, like this Vox and Go curve is a pretty indispensable tool for me, because I'll load up a reference track, check out the spectrum of the track, and then I can check what my track looks like in comparison. Obviously, it needs work, like I was saying, but yeah, it's a very good reference. Are you using samples for bass, or do you have bass VST? So what I usually do is, like in my templates, I will have something like phase plant, and then I'll make the bass, sample it out, load it in this sampler plugin, just because there's various things that make resampling bass so much more stable. One of them is being able to, you know, sometimes when the notes change of a bass line, and I often use changing bass notes, is the start point of the waveform changes ever so slightly. So to get it very tight, resampling is the way to go. It takes a long time, but I mean, once you have it done once or twice, you get the procedure. I should actually do a video on how I do it with the TX16W. It's a very nice sampler. I'm not sure if the links are actually showing up in chat. I'm not sure if something is automatically hiding them, but post it in the comments, because I'm not going to do it like right now during the video. I'll probably only be on for like another 30 minutes or so. I need to go to the toilet quick, and then I'll be back just now. Hiram Music, do you think audio engineering school is worth it? Rewatch the stream. I actually answered like literally that exact question maybe like 20 minutes ago or so. I'm not a big fan of dynamic EQs. I find that they're very noticeable in the sound. Ozone 9, Isotope Ozone 9's dynamic EQ is one of the cleanest that I've come across, or at least to my ears. But I haven't compared too many of them because I've never really been a fan. I should probably check out Surfer EQ because it does have some pretty good reviews. But the first few times I used dynamic or any kind of like adaptive EQ, I wasn't very happy with the response. I have 2 questions. Do you have time to focus with me? Okay, hold on a sec. Let me just go to the toilet. Let me play you guys just this, what I've got here. I'm going to run to the bathroom. and then I'll be back. I'm actually going to mute these because I just threw them in now. And then I promise I will focus with you, Mr. Chris Flo. Okay, I'm back. What was your question, or what were your two questions? I can focus with you. Let me see if there's any other stuff here. I think that Asterix have very cool sound engineers team. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but he's been making very good music since like the early 2000s, and I'm sure he didn't have a cool sound engineers team back then. And hey, I mean, if you can afford a cool sound engineers team, I'd love to have one. How do you EQ stuff which has a lot of change in the frequency range, synth with LFO and bandpass filter in Serum like rising acid synth? That kind of thing, I like to use a de-esser, or I guess that could be seen as adaptive EQing. But I find a de-esser is generally the cleanest way to kind of remove that harsh tone from like a rising bandpass lead or something like that. Or if you do have multipass, it's actually a nice... let me just show you quickly. Multipass is a really cool way I think it was this one. It's got like a really harsh frequency there. We can just like compress that. I think these two questions are coming through. The sound in Asterix Adana on 140. How to recreate. Is that one of the two questions? For sound recreation stuff, post a link. Okay, I obviously know the track. But just remind me, post a comment on the video with a question mark, and then I'll be able to get through to that when I actually like make a video or something. I won't be able to just answer it off the top of my head. I don't know all the sounds in existence at all times. Unfortunately, I wish I did. Willow Wisp, aka Mysterion. Interesting. I should do more of that like dark foresty stuff. But yeah, if you guys want sound design tutorials, post comments on the videos. It's the easiest way for me to get to it, because I obviously can't just get to it now. Thank you, Adam. Always tune... What? Hey man, do you always tune all of your kick low end to the frequency of the bass? When it's overlapping with the first note to marry them together, can you leave that part of the kick? I don't always tune it. I have like various kicks that I've made in like various keys, and then what I'll often do is kind of just go for the sound that I want and try fix it up with like the side chain and the EQ and that kind of stuff. I don't think tuning the kicks makes all that much of a difference. I generally go with the sound. I tweeted to you, I think 1 month ago. I'm so sorry, dude. I'm so bad with social media. I've been taking a break for several months to focus on music big time, and I've just ignored everything. So I'm sorry. The best way to contact me is just posting comments or tuning in on my live streams when I actually do them. An Undershake Mega Mix. I actually did get that request. I have been looking into it. Cats or dogs? Dogs, of course. Cats are I want to say the right word without offending people. They're too high maintenance for me. Dogs, they'll, when you get home and you see a cat, it's like, oh, this dude again. But the dogs are like the happiest people to see you, even if you've been away at a festival for like 7 days. Come to Israel and I'll organize a meet with Asterix. It'd be nice to get a booking in Israel. Is your kick always in the root of the scale, or do you use perfect fifth kicks? Do you mean up from the bass? So again, like I said, I'll just go with the sound as opposed to like tuning the kicks and the bass and that kind of thing. Is there any tutorial on how you made this intro tune of the track which you just played on the stream? Nope, not yet. I actually just like started making this the other day, but let me see if I can try to break it down for you guys. Let me see what sounds there are here. I think most of the stuff in this track was actually made in Hive. I was just like trying to break it down and see like how much I could actually push the plugin. So it's like just... I just turned the reverb on max, but then I set it to like a really high frequency, so it kind of made this pad sound. No, I believe it was a chord as well, not just one note. And then I believe that's a melody that I wrote using one of the presets. Yeah, that's one of the presets actually. I wanted to play around with like the modulation, like with the MIDI and stuff. Play around with like the MIDI capability. Let me actually open up the plugin here. So I was just like playing around with that, recorded in some MIDI, but then I only ended up chopping out like the first little bit. As you can see, like I actually recorded in the longer bits, but I don't think I actually used them. That's often what I'll end up doing, is I kind of just like throw a bunch of crap at the wall and just find the little bits that stick. So I think that's pretty much it in terms of that intro. It's just those sounds. Let me actually show you what that melody looks like if you guys want to copy it. All yours. So yeah, you can pause that if you want to copy that. Yeah, I'm still getting back into the habit of the whole mic muting thing. Got any tricks for cleaning up self-recorded vocals? I believe I've done a tutorial with cleaning up vocals and that kind of stuff. Gates and expanders are probably going to be your best bet for those types of things. What studio headphones do you suggest in a mid to high budget, about $200? I'm not very good with the dollar thing in the third world, so I'm not sure if the AKG K240s fit into that, or if you can get Bayer Dynamics for that price, but those two are generally the most recommended. My favorite festival, oh, that's a tough one. It's a very tough one. The Origin Festival that I played 2 weeks ago was pretty incredible. It's always been one of my favorites locally. So that was a very good one. Also, any of the Alien Safaris here in South Africa are really good as well. What's your opinion on a wider stereo layer for the bass? You can do it. It's mostly done in like slow genres like prog and that kind of stuff. I would generally either remove your low fundamental or EQ the higher layer, just so that they're not clashing in the low end. I'm definitely going to get to that an undershake mega mix. It's just that melody is very complex. Like the sound, I think the sound itself is not like the key there, it's the melody. So it's going to take me quite a while to like break that apart. But I have seen your comments, and thank you for being so perseverant. I think that's the right word. Do you use harmonies and chord progressions? Seems to be more one tone at a time melodies. I think for the intros and breaks, it's nice to kind of create that kind of harmony. But often with the like rolling bass line, you don't want to create too much complexity in terms of the tones. But for breaks and intros and that kind of thing, it can help to break away from that monotony of a single tone to use chords, definitely. I think I actually did in this intro. ATH M40Xs are good. They're good headphones, but I would say they're more leaning towards production and, you know, if you're producing music when you're mobile. They are closed back headphones, so they're not going to give you as acoustically accurate response as something like the AKGs or the Beyerdynamics, which are open back headphones. They're going to be slightly closer to the sound of a speaker. I'm not knocking the M40s, they're great headphones, but they're closed back headphones, so they're more for isolating outside sounds. Did you apply for any festivals in Europe so far? No, I have not, unfortunately. Just been concentrating mainly on just creating new music and obviously the YouTube videos and that kind of stuff. But I feel like, you know, if I just make music good enough, hopefully the festivals will come to me rather than me having to apply and stuff. How should one go about building complex progressions that continue to evolve? I feel like I had endless automations and stuff in my tunes with around 50 tracks all in all. Still feels a bit minimal. I think the key there is to, you know, identify the parts of the track that are really compelling and remove everything else, and then piece the track around those parts. So a lot of the time, you know, it's a sore thing to do as a music producer, specifically if we've spent a lot of time creating a track, but often removing whole chunks of the track and repeating parts that are slightly better will do the track so much more justice than complicating the track with like more modulations and more automations and that kind of stuff. So I would say, you know, use like a marker track or use a dummy audio track. I've discussed this in a previous video where what I will generally do is I will create like blank audios and give myself like a little rating of these parts, like which one is a good part, which one's a bad part, what's going to stay, what's going to go. And you can actually use the different colors to give, like, I use the colors to give myself a reference as to like what's good and what's bad. If I think, okay, no, this part really is not doing the track justice, like 150% justice, then just remove it completely, you know. It does help to save different variations. So what I'll generally do, like say for example now, this is like, I haven't got to the mixing or the arrangement of this track. This is kind of just all the ideas thrown out there. So now what I'll do is I'll identify which parts of the track are like the banger parts. So I will go and I'll put like a little green block in those parts. And then I will save the project as a new file name, just so that I can always go back and create like multiple variations of that. And then what I'll do is I'll remove all the parts that are like are red, and then build the track up of only the good parts and jump between the different good parts, you know, have like, yeah, call and response. I guess it's more of a kind of traditional chorus verse kind of thing. I think call and response is more of a, like dealing with the singular types of sounds within the progression, like something like this, I think would be more of a call and response as opposed to the A and B traditional songwriting kind of thing. But I feel like doing this and, you know, creating a second project helps to not get so attached to the stuff that we've made. And I'm telling you, like 95% of the time, I never even look at that original project. So it's just there to make myself feel better for removing the stuff that I've put blood, blood and hours in, if that makes sense. You should make a video on dub delays for build-ups. I have. I believe it's one of my most watched videos on my channel, in fact. I'll have to double check those stats, though. Bro, I need to eat. Oh, no, I'm also hungry, man. What you eating? Nova Dynamics EQ is amazing and transparent. I should actually check that out. Tokyo Dawn stuff is also usually very, very good. Do you know Durango? I do. I used to listen to a lot in my more darker days. How to achieve those kinds of melodies. It's a tricky one. I think he also does a lot of the like random LFO kind of stuff. I'm not sure what plugins he's using and that kind of stuff. I'd have to obviously do a little bit more investigation. But I think a lot of his kind of like squelchy leads that have that melodic thing are based on random LFOs. I mean, I could be very wrong. But post a comment with a link to a particular track or something, and I'll try to get to it in a future video. Comparing to land switch, I feel like I'm missing a degree of layering that's kind of impressive on their end. So do you mean, when you say arrangement, do you mean like horizontal arrangement or vertical arrangement? Are you talking about, you know, how the track moves from A to Z, or are you talking about how the track sounds, like the arrangement of those sounds? Because I would say then, you know, having a good listening environment is definitely going to be the way to get that layering. And the number one thing that's like done it for me was SonarWorks reference. You should do a track review podcast and review some noobs. I should maybe one day. I just feel like there's so much more that can be dived in and found in a track, but a quick listen on SoundCloud never does justice. I mean, I do, like for my Patreons and stuff, I do like track reviews, but I generally stress that they send me a wave, because I can then load it up in my projects. I can check it on Spectrum analyzers, and I can really dive in and analyze it properly and spend time doing so. You know, often in a stream, things go like by the wayside. How many tracks do you usually have in a project? That's a difficult question. Probably like between 50 to 100, I guess, depending on the complexity of the project. Nowadays, I'm getting kind of less and less layers, and I'm spending more time making each of those layers sound better, if that makes sense. And for example, like rather than having like 3 synths playing the same thing, have them doing like a A-B thing like that, and making each one sound bigger so that they don't need those kind of accompaniments and stuff like that. I think that's a cool way to achieve like a kind of minimal sound all round, but everything still sounds pretty big. Hey, Uncle Bat, how's it going? Yeah, it's been a while since I've been live. I had a few issues with hardware and stuff. My sound card that I was using was giving me problems. It seems to be working today, but yeah. I got a new mic as well. My mic just died, but yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to be calling it soon. It's getting pretty late. I'm getting pretty tired. So yeah, I'm just going to play around with a few more minutes, and if any other questions come through, I'll try to answer them. Thank you, Adam E., for your very generous donation. Is the metronome on? Oh, holy moly. I'm so sorry. That must have destroyed your guys' ears. It doesn't come through on my mains because of the way I've kind of set it up. I've got like my audition output going through to the other sound card and all sorts. So apologies. I've actually recorded entire videos and then only noticed while I'm editing that the flippin' metronome is on. So yeah, sorry about that. Taking that metronome. Yeah, that's sound design at its finest, gents. Didn't you know? That clave sound. Good old. Do you have any tips on using portamento? I feel like it sounds ugly pretty fast if you go too wild with different notes at the same time. Yeah, I guess with the portamento, it helps to, just use it lightly. Something like looking at how a traditional sequencer works that allows you to kind of like turn it on and turn in like a slide off helps to kind of like identify, when to use portamento. So I would say jump onto something that's like a little bit more of a traditional sequencer, something that has got slide parameters, and play around with that. Does sound card affect audio render quality and speed? No, does not. In my case, maybe because I've got the outputs running to the one's inputs. So you guys are hearing a sound that's slightly affected by the preamps of the sound card, but in terms of like within a DAW bouncing, sound card has no effect on the audio within the DAW. It affects what you hear, and that may affect your judgment as to what you do within the plugin. Within the DAW. Made a baseline. I'm very happy with it, but I'm stuck. I'm stuck with it. Any tips on how to move on with the track? Try playing around with some samples. Check out that kind of infinite reverb trick that I used at the beginning. Apply that on anything. Make some pads, atmospheres. Apply random filters onto those pads and atmospheres. Those should give you at least a starting point for some experimentation with that kick and bass that you have. Do you have used Vengeance Avenger VST? I've used it a few times in a friend of mine's studio, and it's very, very nice, but it's a little bit bulky. I wasn't a big fan of the interface. I found that it involved a lot of diving and diving and diving, and while something like Falcon, which I'm a big fan of, is similar, it's a little bit more friendly in terms of the way that you dive. So, for example, like each of the elements is presented in a very kind of flashy way in Avenger, and I feel like if they'd spend more time looking at intuitive aspects as opposed to making it look good it could have been an overall more usable plugin, but it's very good sound. One of the actual like top in terms of sound design, I would say, but I could just never gel with the kind of workflow of it. How are the dogs? They are fine. They're actually very quiet. Took them for a walk in the forest yesterday, and since then they've been like absolutely, I think it was so hot that they've just been like sleeping. So they've been very good dogs. Yeah, it's a pretty cool pad out of like a FM. How did you build up your rep to a point where you were playing at big festivals like Origin? It's a difficult thing to answer. I guess just constant, relentless hard work and just keep making music and releasing tracks. And yeah, eventually you'll be noticed. Will you do more phase plant multipass tutorials? I really enjoyed the last video. It was so good. Thank you very much. Yes, I will definitely be doing some more. I've actually got a video coming up which outlines a few things, but it's not quite tutorial. Hopefully I will be posting it tomorrow, but I can't promise anything. How long does it take you to produce a track? Oh, it's difficult. I mean, sometimes like the core idea, like this one, for example, I actually got out pretty quickly. And it's often due to the amount of time I take between my kind of creative sessions. So, for example, if like I take a break for a week without starting something new, then often I'll be able to get a lot of ideas out in like 1 or 2 sessions. But then the mixing is what kind of takes a long time. It's like fine-tuning the sounds and that kind of thing. With phase plant, I sometimes have problems determining how much modulation is applied since it's not visible on the knob. Consider any advice. So what you can do is a pretty handy thing. Let me see if I can. Do I have a phase plant here? I think I do somewhere. I don't. I think it's just all Hive and like one serum. Oh, the phase plant is the base, but I don't want to edit that. Okay, so here, let's say, for example, put in oscillator, boom. So we could send that. but you can also use these like min-max controls. Sorry, multiply controls. Okay, I guess that doesn't work for audio rate modulation. Silly example, but if you're using like a random to randomize like the pitch, then you could send this through to the multiplier and then use this knob as like the amount. So we would send this to like the pitch, and then this knob then becomes the amount, if that makes sense. Ah! So I find that's the easiest way to get those like really fine controls. Like I said, it doesn't actually work with audio rate modulation, so it's probably not the best example. It would be actually cool. I think in this mix, what you can do is you can send the audio through to that. No, it is aux. So then you route this through to this, and then this through to this, and then this level then becomes the amount. So I hope that answers the questions. What do you post EQ in your track? So that'll be like generally if I want to change like the sound of something creatively as opposed to fix the sound of something, then I'll use post EQ. Or if I want to change like the kind of stereo of the sound using MS, I'll generally use post EQ for that. Serum versus phase plant, I can't really compare the two. They're such different beasts. Similar thing to like Serum versus Hive is they're very particular and they do what they do very well. So Serum's like warp modes, the sound of the oscillators, and like the way you can kind of render your oscillators within the plugin is pretty incredible. And the kind of wavetable editor is amazing. So the oscillators themselves in Serum are incredible, but I find like the workflow and the modular routing capabilities of phase plant is incredible. But with Hive, it's so immediate, and the playability of the plugin is incredible. So I guess it depends what you want. If you want to make sounds very quickly, then I would go to Hive. If you want to make very diverse, very complex sounds, then I would go to phase plant. If you're wanting just a good sounding oscillator, which you can then bounce and use in phase plant or use in Hive, then Serum's the one to go for. Hope that answers the question. Will you get Discord in the future? I do actually have one, but it's close to my Patreons. I'm so bad with social media and stuff like that it's, yeah, I don't know if it'll even be worth it for the public. You know, I don't know if I will offer anything to the people in a public group, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm in the collective, but again, like I said, I'm so bad with social media, so yeah. Would you suggest getting Avenger if I already have Serum and Nexus 2? Is it worth it? if you already have Serum and Nexus 2, then it's a difficult question. Like I said, Avenger's a very, very good plugin, but it didn't really gel with me. I would say something like Faceplant has similar capabilities, maybe not the multi-sample capabilities, but I would say Faceplant is a better option than Avenger. So, oh no, I'm going to get flamed for this one. But I just find that it's so open-ended that when you're going for that level of plugin, there should be no limitations, and especially not with something like the GUI. So, I don't know, that's just my take. Which has been your biggest 3 key learnings in your production? Referencing, being harsh on my own material, and learning to trash something that's not 150%. If you widen a track, you usually lose some mono quality. How do you find the balance? Do you keep 2 versions, club and streaming one? I generally don't. I would say for me personally, the club is always, or at least playing out. I don't play much in clubs. It's more like festivals and that kind of thing. But, some of the smaller clubs, maybe it'll apply where mono is the problem. But most of the festivals that I've played at, they've been stereo rigs. So I haven't really had that issue. And I will generally say, like, the guys who are streaming the music are probably going to be doing it on like a phone speaker or something like that. They're not giving your music the justice most of the time. So I would say make your music to how you want to listen to it, whether it's, on a club rig or on a festival system or something like that. Don't cater to the streaming services in terms of widening and that kind of stuff. Levels and mastering maybe, but I would say just produce the track how you would want to listen to it in your environment. And the streaming service, I would say, is, especially with electronic dance music, it's a way to promote yourself for the live performance or for the DJ gig. So it's more of a kind of promotional tool. So it shouldn't govern how you're making the music, in my opinion. What is your daytime job? I worked in a music store, well, various music stores for like 10 years. So I had a very big background in sales of musical gear and equipment and that kind of thing, and studio gear and that kind of stuff. So I know a lot of gear. I've used a lot of gear that I don't necessarily have. But I don't actually have a day job now. My day job is selling my sound banks, writing articles, and yeah, the YouTube thing. Oh, we're actually going on late. An idle reference in the production of Psytrance. I would say watch over the video again. I think I did answer that. I wouldn't say. I don't know. Yeah, I would say asterisks. Oh, it's getting late, my guys. I'm gonna have to call it a night. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining me on this. I wonder if we've actually reached 20k yet. Let me have a look. Let me have a quick look before we. Oh, so close, so close. We need like 15 more. Go tell all your friends, guys. Please, I'm desperate. Steinberg UR816C or Focusrite 18i20. I would say it depends. If you've got USB-C, I would go for the Steinberg just because it's slightly newer. The drivers are probably going to be more up to date, that kind of stuff. But I use a Focusrite Sapphire Pro 24. That's the Firewire version, and I'm very, very happy with it. I have been happy with it for many, many years. So the Focusrite stuff is good, but I think the 18i20 might be a little bit dated compared to the USB-C series from Steinberg. So I guess it depends. If your computer has it, then go for it. Awesome, guys. Thank you for joining me. I will hopefully do another stream soon on Kilohertz Multipass yet. Yes. Not too many in-depth tutorials. Okay, guys, that's it. I'm out.